So, let's start right at the beginning. When you have a thought, or a feeling, or a belief, what is that thing?
Traditionally, this whole debate has been split between two big camps. You've got dualism, the idea that the mind is a non-physical soul, and then you've got physicalism, which says, nope, the mind is the physical brain. End of story. But functionalism comes along and suggests a third way. It says, what if both sides are asking the wrong question? What if the key isn't what the mind is made of, but what it does?
At its core, functionalism is a really simple but incredibly powerful idea. It claims that a mental state, like being in pain or believing it's Tuesday, isn't defined by a specific pattern of neurons firing or some kind of ghostly spirit. Nope. Instead, it's defined entirely by its function, by the role it plays in the whole system. Let's make that a bit more concrete. Take the mental state of pain. The input might be you touching a hot stove. The outputs are you pulling your hand away, maybe shouting ouch, and then forming a new mental state, like the desire to run your hand under some cold water. For a functionalist, that whole package of causes and effects, that is what we call pain.
Now, this whole idea of function over form isn't just about the mind. It's actually all around us. To really get a grip on this, let's look at a few quick-fire examples.
Think about an eye, a human eye, a fly's eye, a fish's eye. They're all physically really different, right? They're made of different stuff, they're arranged in different ways, but we call them all eyes because they all do the same job. They detect light and send signals that let an organism see.
Or how about a poison? There are countless different chemicals that are poisonous. Arsenic, cyanide, you name it. They've got completely different molecular structures. But what makes them all poisons? Their function. They all cause a harmful chemical effect in a living thing.
Okay, so if mental states are defined by what they do, how can we describe that function precisely? Well, early functionalists found a really powerful analogy in the world of computing, the machine table.
Just imagine a simple drinks machine that sells a can for 70p. We can describe its entire mind with a set of simple rules. It starts in, let's call it, state 1. It's waiting for money. You provide an input, you stick a 20p coin in. It produces an output, the message insert 50p, and then it moves to a new state, state 2. Now it's waiting for 50p.
This list of if-then instructions is what's called a machine table. It's basically the machine's software. It describes every possible combination of state and input and tells the machine what to do next. You don't need to know if it's made of metal or plastic to understand its program. And this brings us to the absolutely massive leap made by the philosopher Hilary Putnam. He argued that our mental states, our beliefs, our desires, our pains, our joys, are just states in a vastly more complex machine table. Our mind is the software. The brain is just the hardware that happens to be running it. Okay, now this is where things get really, really interesting. If the mind is just software, does that mean it could run on different kinds of hardware?
This concept has a name: multiple realizability. It's the idea that the very same functional state, the same mental state, could be realized or brought to life in completely different physical systems. The software is the same, even if the hardware is totally different.
So, we know that a certain complex arrangement of neurons firing away in our human brains can create the mental state of pain. That's our familiar hardware, our wetware, if you like. But what about an octopus? Its brain structure is incredibly different from ours. It's almost alien. But if a state in its brain performs the same functional role as our pain, it's caused by injury, it causes it to get away from danger, then a functionalist would say, yes, the octopus is genuinely feeling pain.
Well, what are the key takeaways? First, functionalism says the mind is like software, defined by its function, not the hardware it runs on. And this opens up the radical possibility that our brain isn't the only thing that could ever host a mind. This gives us a really powerful way to think about consciousness in animals with very different brains, and of course, in sophisticated AI.